Thank you, everyone, for joining us. If we haven't met, my name is Carissa Caruk-Ganczar, and I'm excited to spend this short little time giving you some tips on some time management. So, whether you are joining us live or catching the replay, if you have any questions, feel free to pop them in or send me a note after as well. So, today we're going to talk about making time for marketing. So, in any time management that we have, looking at what can we do? We know we are all so busy, for many of us, even trying to get to the session today. Some of you might be watching the recording because we're so busy. We've got so many different priorities going on in our lives right now. So how do we carve out that time, especially in the area of marketing? And the tips we're going to talk about today can also apply to all aspects of your business. So what I found over the years in working with folks is that there's kind of two camps of us. Some of us that just never have enough time, and maybe marketing is not our thing. So it's always a thing that gets bumped, put to the side. We're just too busy, and maybe it's just not something that we feel confident or comfortable with. Or there might be the other folks out there who are spending way too much time in marketing, maybe because you love it, or maybe because you're not sure what to be working on and how to go through and do that. So a couple of assumptions that we have here for today are that just because of our time here, I'm assuming that those of you who are taking in this replay or watching and paying attention to this, a couple of things. You've already got a sense of what you're supposed to be working on or the types of tasks you're prioritizing in your business or organization around marketing. So you've maybe decided which social media platforms you're using. Maybe you're spending time on your website. You've come up with that strategy in those priority areas of things you're looking to focus on. So, and if you haven't done that type of work, we won't dig into that here today, but I encourage you to reach out to the team at Bankert Marketing to see if there's past recordings that you could take a look at or any upcoming sessions on that. So we're going to set that assumption that we're showing up today knowing that we need to be doing marketing. We have an idea about the types of activities we might be needing to take a look at, and that we're trying to figure out how do we actually get the stuff done. So that's where I'd like you to think about it from that perspective. So what we are going to cover today are a couple of tips to help you get this back on your calendar and to move that needle on the things that you know you need to be doing when it comes to marketing. So the first thing we're going to talk about is time audits. So it's hard to plan out and prioritize if we're not even sure where we're spending our time. So we'll touch a little bit on that. The next piece we're going to take a look at is prioritizing. So thinking about, again, assuming that you maybe got a plan and a strategy or some focused areas of marketing, how do you prioritize what you need to be working on and when? We're going to touch base on time blocking, which is a technique to help you get this into your calendar and to actually get some of the work done, and some tips of how you can put this into a weekly plan. So that's what we're going to cover here today in these quick tips that we're working through. So the first stat that I'd like to put up for you is this 23 minutes and 15 seconds. So for anybody who's worked with me in the past on any time management workshops or planning from that side, this might look familiar to you. And if not, this might be a brand new stat for you. So what this actually is that several years ago, there was a study done by the University of California, Irvine, that said for every time we're interrupted, it takes us 23 minutes and 15 seconds to get back on track into that deep thinking. So we talk about managing our time, and depending on your organization or your business, you might be going through constant interruptions and working through any of that. So when you take a look at whether it's even 5 minutes to get back on track, every time that we're interrupted, it takes us multiple minutes to get refocused. So when we talk about we need to make time, or where you don't have time, or we're jumping around between tasks, this is just one of those interesting stats to keep in mind as to why you might be bouncing around and working through any of those pieces. So this is why I encourage people and folks to think, the first thing to do, if you haven't done this for a while, is to do a time audit. Depending on your business and organization, we also have rhythms and seasons to the work that we do. So sometimes a year it's much busier. The tasks that we do are different. And then sometimes in the other years, that's where we can kind of do that behind the scenes work from that side of it. So taking a look at this time audit, and whether you're tracking your time for 1 to 2 weeks, you might also, if you're a very seasonal business, you might also want to take a look at this. What does your time and tasks look like over the various seasons throughout the year? But what is really important is to just zoom out and think about, where am I actually spending my time? So not only just on marketing, do a quick journal take some notes, whether you're online through that. But for a week or two, even 3 days, will get you into this if you're looking at it, is make note of all the tasks that you're doing. What is coming across your desk that's taking up your time? How long is it taking you? Make notes of like what time of day were you working on this activity? So were you doing website updates at 8 o'clock at night and it was taking you half an hour from that side of it? And make note about the type of tasks that you're doing in terms of like, how do you feel when you're doing these? So is it something that energizes you or drains you? Do you need to be deeply focused? Is it something that you can do maybe when you've got interruptions or folks walking around? So pay attention to what you're actually focusing on a daily basis or on a seasonal basis. Because what you're trying to take a look at here first is, what am I maybe doing that maybe I don't need to be doing? What's taking longer than it should be doing? And really importantly, so when I do a lot of time management workshops, we talk about managing your time, to-do list, and your energy. So for me, I know that I do my best thinking early in the morning. So if I'm blocking in time to do a blog post or to work on content for my website at 7 o'clock at night, I'm not going to get the best work out of that. So it's probably going to take me 3 hours versus maybe an hour in the morning when I wake up and have that initial deep thinking. So this is a first activity to take a look. So do that time audit. Track everything that you're working on, make note of how long it's taking you. Also make note of like, when are your best times? So when do you show up as your best self with the best brain power, maybe one of the times of day or the time of the week where you can just kind of do some of those minor tasks that maybe don't take a lot of thinking. Just track your patterns, because this is what'll help to find what works for you from that side of it. So that's the first step, is to just find out what makes sense in terms of where are you spending your time? How does it feel? How long is it taking you on some of those tasks? This is also an important activity to do that if you are someone who has the pleasure of having a team or maybe have support that can help you with, even being able to identify what could you delegate out. So what are the tasks that you need to specifically be working on, or maybe what are the tasks that you can bring someone else to help you on? So first thing to do is a time audit, which is a great way to work on that. The second thing I want to talk about is prioritizing your marketing, so your tasks. So when we take a look at, we all have a long to-do list. And right now, if you're not even sure what you're supposed to be working on, the first step I would suggest is to do a big brain dump. So grab a piece of paper, and maybe I'll even give you a minute to actually do that. So if you have a piece of paper handy, I'm going to pause for a minute to let you do that. Make a list of everything that's on your to-do list right now. So just dump your brain. So thinking about specifically marketing, what are the things that you know that you need to be working on for marketing this week? So I'll give you a minute just to dump that out of your brain before we talk. Okay. So when I'm working on my brain dumps and my to-do list, this is something I like to do at the beginning of the week. I'll pull out a piece of paper, I'll pull out a spreadsheet, whatever works for you from that side. I'm someone who still likes to do old school handwrite in a notebook, and I'll dump my brain once a week so that I get it out there, because the more that we're carrying around in our brain, then that's taking extra energy that we don't need to have in there. So that's the first step, to just get it out so that you know. So now that if you've got a list of those marketing activities that you're thinking about that you need to do on a weekly basis, maybe a daily basis, or on your to-do list, let's take a look at how do we prioritize them. So if you were to look at this as an axis, so when we look at low effort, the effort versus the impact is what this is looking at in these 4 quadrants. So ideally, what we want to aim for is high impact, high effort activities that you're doing to make the most reach and the most impact in your organization or business. So these might look different for all of you and based on your business and your strategy and what you're working on, but ideally want to aim for dedicating our time for that high impact, high effort activities. We also have some of those low impact and high effort, or high impact but low effort. So when we take a look at, I've got some examples here on the screen for us to look at, and these may not be applicable to you, but just to give us some thoughts. So for those of us who maybe are not super confident when it comes to marketing, or maybe just don't have the time and energy that week, we sometimes can default down into that low impact, low effort area. So we might still be carving out time to do marketing on a weekly basis or a daily basis, but we might just be be spending our time scrolling social media, liking posts, or maybe we're going to be deflecting and just tweaking our website and doing new content, or looking at things that, oh, maybe I'll just need to change out this picture, maybe things that aren't as high impact for the people that we need. Or maybe if we look at the top left box, that those high impact efforts that we need to think about, replying to inquiries. So if we've got some inquiries coming in through your inbox, maybe it's also sharing client wins and doing those quick social media posts. So getting content out there and interacting with the folks that are looking for the work that we do. So those would possibly fall into the high impact, low effort category. The low impact, high effort is looking at when we're talking about chasing every platform or really tweaking and perfecting our graphics or being really nitpicky about the type of image that we might be sharing. So when we think about, is that really essential for your business and your organization? And does that tie into the strategy or the priorities that you've already identified for your marketing plan? So if you're not sure what to be working on this, as I've mentioned, take a look at some of the other recordings that have come out from the team here, as well as to think about maybe you need to work on that strategy. Again, that high impact. So this could be creating content or your email newsletters or some of that outreach efforts, depending on your business. So for myself specifically in Flourish Leadership Development, so a lot of the work that I do is business to business. So that is building relationships with other organizations or partners who might bring me in for training. It's connecting with other organizations that also may have connections to the folks that I might want to work on. So for me, a lot of the high impact, high effort activities that I've been working on identified as priorities for this year is I've been doing my website with the wonderful team here. Email newsletters gets me out, I know, right in front of those folks who already have a relationship with me and want to hear about what I have coming out, and those direct outreach efforts. So I know that when I'm starting to slip on my marketing tasks and maybe the priorities that I don't need to be focusing on, I'm scrolling on social media where I don't need to be. So not a lot of my clients and customers are necessarily hanging out on social media. So the more time that I'm just there liking posts or maybe checking what other folks are doing, I might be used up my time block for something that doesn't actually move the needle. So this is why it's really important to think about that big to-do list of the brain dump that you just did in terms of those marketing tasks that are on your list. Which ones make sense that fall into those categories? And if you can look at those that have the high impact, so maybe it's that you've got a short amount of time, so you can do some of this high impact in the top left box, or maybe you're going to dedicate and carve out some longer time to maybe write a blog post and to get some of your newsletter content put together. So this is where it's important to, if you don't know what you need to be working on, then it's hard to even prioritize what to work on. And this is where we just fall into the trap of, I'm just going to show up and do something and hope that it lands from that side of it. So when we take a look at that prioritizing, knowing what needs to be done and how it's going to work. So when we think about then, if we've got that time audit, now we're thinking about this whole big to-do list, what we decided are our key marketing activities. We're going to take a look at the next step that we think about. So one of the ways to do this is that if it's not on your calendar, it's probably not going to get done. And I know that I've been guilty about that for the last month here as well too. So I've had a lot of extra things going on that are outside of my usual schedule. So a lot of my marketing time has been shuffled to the side. And so my admin time, all those kind of things. The things that we don't necessarily love to do, or maybe we need that deeper thinking time, are usually the ones that gets pushed to the side. So one of the ways to do that is to look at time blocking. So we look at time blocking. What it is coming up with chunks of time in your calendar on a weekly, maybe it's every 2 weeks. It's also seasonal. Again, if you're thinking about your seasonal business, what this looks like from that side, and I'll give you some examples, but choosing blocks of time where you'll focus on specific activities. So ideally, if you can even carve out 30 minutes without interruption, so you can get a lot of things done. Because if we think back to that stat about interruptions, that if it takes us minutes and minutes and minutes to get back on track, this is why blocking your time and focusing on at least one grouping of tasks can really help you out. So I personally have a goal, and just based on the work that I do and the business that I have, that on an ongoing basis, I don't want to spend more than 2 hours of time on marketing every week. There's downtime. So if I'm not doing facilitation and training, so in the summer months, I may be not doing as much presenting or working with organizations. So I'll have more time to be working on some blog posts, maybe carving out larger chunks of time in those downtimes based on that seasonality that I can think about prepping for the fall. But on an average basis, 1 to 2 hours a week is all that I have. So thinking about if that's all the time that I have, what am I going to work on in that time block? So for me, again, if I look back to the prioritizing that we did in step 2, I know that for me, a big priority for me is working on those blog posts and newsletters. That's something that's come out for me in 2026 as a key area of focus for me. So looking at that time blocks, I know that I need to carve out time to work on those pieces. If I also think about the time of when I'm going to put this in the calendar in terms of those time blocks, for me, I love to, if I have that time, as I mentioned before, early mornings, as usually I can wake up and I've got some really good deep thinking going on. So if I can block an hour in the morning or 2 half-hour slots in a week to work on those blog posts, that will be great from that side of it. And another good time that I know that I've been monitoring in terms of my time audit and where my energy is best is for me Saturday mornings. So if I have time at home on a Saturday morning that we have no activities in terms of our family or I'm not out delivering, I know that if I can spend a Saturday morning, I can create a lot of content to get that scheduled in and work on that. So that's where you'll usually see my time blocks in terms of marketing, is that early on in the morning and then a Saturday morning from that side of it. So when you're looking at time blocks, some folks are very disciplined when you do time blocking your calendar. That for some folks, we're all wired differently and our brains all wired differently. For some people, they can block out their entire calendar into chunks throughout the entire week. So they'll know that marketing will take place every Monday morning from 9 to 11 a.m. Maybe Tuesday morning is all of their one-on-ones with their staff from that side of it. I find that sometimes my deep thinking time varies throughout the week. So, but what you're looking at is finding knowing that you need to block in a time every week. So I also like to talk about it in terms of those buckets. So as a business owner, I know we're talking about marketing here specifically, but I like to think about it in terms of 5 buckets, 5 blocks of tasks that I need to work on in a week. I need to do marketing. I know that I need to do administration. If I'm leading a team at the time, then I know that I have that management time, then I need to be connecting with the people in whatever that looks like. I know that I need to have client-facing delivery time. So I need to be actually delivering the workshops, out there doing the team building. And then I know that I also need to be working on developing things. So obviously each business and organization is different, but knowing what are those buckets of activities that you need to work on so you can schedule them in. So when you've got those into your calendar, take a look at it. Make sure they're actually blocked in your calendar. So for me, it's usually actually blocked in that I create my own non-negotiable appointment in my calendar. So that might be something you want to think about in terms as well too, that letting your team know if you have other folks that, you know what, if Friday mornings are your marketing mornings that you're going to go in and schedule posts, work on that content, block that out as an important non-negotiable appointment with yourself so that you can also work on that and figure what happens. So that is something to take a look at in terms of the time blocking. So here's an example of what your weekly schedule could look like specifically on marketing activities. So again, this would be more if you are looking at prioritizing marketing, which we're talking about here today, that, you know what, I need to make sure that I'm getting marketing on the calendar at least an hour a week, hopefully maybe more. What could that look like? So here's an example. So you might look at on Monday morning, I'm going to dedicate 30 minutes to write 1 social post or draft 1 email. As we know now too, as well with the presence of AI, some of these things, at least your messy first drafts, your brainstorming, can also help get to be done quicker. So you can also take a look at there's also training on any of those pieces or talk to the team as well on AI and how that might be able to help you. But really as an example here, so maybe Monday morning is like, let's get that 1 social post out or that email drafted for the week. Maybe on Wednesdays at lunch, you've got a bit of a breather there as well. So maybe this is where you're actually going to schedule your content. You're going to go back to that social media post or those posts if you did multiple, maybe do some tweaks. Maybe you're also going to reply to some comments that might have come forward, but blocking in another 20 minutes even there helps you from that side of it. Friday afternoons. So maybe this is when you're going to deep dive and spend some time looking at like what's been working. So reviewing your analytics, taking a look at that and planning out your next week. So especially on a Friday afternoon, maybe if you've had a really busy week and you know that your energy is low and your time is a little bit less, so you want to do some of those tasks that aren't taking that creativity. This is why it's great to be able to block that in on a Friday afternoon. And again, looking at whether it's monthly or seasonally, if you know that you've got downtime, like for me, going into summer months, I spend a lot of time creating behind the scenes. Looking at then blocking out larger chunks of time to batch some content. So I might spend some time sitting outside on the deck in the summer, writing a whole bunch of content, those messy first drafts to get it out. So then I've got those details that I can pull forward going forward. Really important to look at the big pieces to aim for consistency, right? So the more we can build habits, we're changing our behaviors and building habits is what we're looking at. So if we are looking at the schedule here for somebody who might not feel confident in social media or feel confident with the marketing, saying that on Mondays I'm going to write one social media post, that's a pretty low risk activity that could feel really good. So writing one social media post, it doesn't have to be perfect, but getting it out is better than nothing. So that feels a little bit less overwhelming than I need to go and do a whole bunch of social media posts. I need to update my website. Oh, I'm going to write a blog post. Oh, my email newsletter hasn't heard from me from a whole week. So when we look at that whole big to-do list, that's where our brains can shut down. So the more that we can think about what are those baby steps and chunks of time that we can carve in, 20 minutes a day can really help from that side of it. If you have the luxury of being able to block out a whole morning, that's fantastic. Reality is many of us have a hard time carving out time to show up for half an hour for today, even to talk about this. So think about baby steps and pieces that you can work on from that side of it. So quickly to wrap us up, and then we'll open up for any questions that come up from that side of it. Come up with a realistic plan. We all have big dreams and big goals and think that we can do way more than we need to, or way more than we can in an actual time frame. So first of all, is just to like pause and notice, where am I spending my time? So even if you can just spend time, today's Thursday, so if you can even start tracking your time this afternoon and tomorrow and Monday, even if you look at these next 3 days, where are you spending the time? So make a list of what are the tasks you're doing, how much time is it taking you, what's your energy level like in the morning or afternoon, and just notice where your time is going. Go back to the big to-do list that we just brain dumped from that side of it, or that you can brain dump if you're watching the recording, and identify your top 3 priorities when it comes to marketing. So what are those activities that are actually going to move your business forward? So instead of us spending time just scrolling on social media and liking posts or just thinking about all the things we should be doing, what are the 3 things we need to get out the door today? So I know for me, I've got a newsletter that I want to get out for early May or the beginning of the month. So that's a priority that I'm trying to work on that content from that side of it. So thinking about what's going to move your business forward to show up from one of those pieces. And as soon as we get off the call here today, I encourage you to go and open up your calendar right now and block in 2 30-minute marketing slots for next week. So put in 2 30-minute slots next week. So whether that's going to be in a daytime, or maybe you're going to do that in the evening, or maybe you're going to take a look at that on Sunday evening as well too. But get it in the calendar and hold those 2 30-minute slots to focus on your marketing. Also, I haven't put it in here, but just to know that when we're showing up to do our marketing, whatever task you're doing in your business, be prepared to act when that 30-minute marketing slot starts, So if I know that on Monday morning at 9 a.m., I'm going to work on my website content, instead of showing up at Monday morning at 9 a.m. trying to find my website files or what's the content, what do I need to be doing, start to create those files and folders. Like on my messy desk in front of me, I've got a website folder, I've got a newsletter folder, I've got a notebook that I've been jotting down ideas. So when I show up at Monday morning at 9 a.m., I know that I'm going to pull those files onto my desks and I can start working on something. So what we're looking to be is more prepared versus reactive in whatever shape that form is, so that those super valuable minutes you have are ready to be used. And then take a look. Try this out for a couple of weeks. Adjust what works, what doesn't. Maybe you're finding the Monday morning at 9 a.m. does not work for you. You've got too many interruptions coming in your business. That's not a great time for you to be writing a blog post or getting a newsletter out. Find what works for you and adjust. The thing is, though, to keep it consistent and to adjust to keep it in the calendar. Again, thinking about it seasonally as well too, right? Is it an internal expectation or is it an expectation that I have to get these things out? So maybe I don't need to be putting a whole bunch of blog content out there right now, and I can work on them in the summer and just focus on the social media posts promoting an upcoming offer. So think about where it works for you and track that and make those adjustments. So, a few quick takeaways for us here. Do that audit first. If we don't even know where our time is going, what time we have, it's hard to prioritize marketing, get in a calendar. Be ruthless about the tasks you need to be focused on. So for me, working only an hour, 2 hours on marketing every week, I need to make sure that I'm not spending that hour, 2 hours scrolling social media or making comments from that side of it. If it's not on your calendar, it's not going to get done. And I know this again from experience. I have to remind myself I haven't had marketing on my calendar for the last couple of weeks because I've been in deep in delivery mode. So if it's not blocked in my time and my calendar, it's not going to happen. So if you are not putting in those marketing blocks, put those in from that side of it and start small. Just do something and it'll work from that side of it. So I'm going to just stop sharing my screen. If there's any questions, and I'll drop my email address here. Happy to have a chat with you after as well. So thank you everybody for joining. Or if you're catching the replay, feel free to even send me an email if you have any questions or tips, definitely on that as well. I'd be happy to do that.